Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Here For The Craic with me, Emma Neill. We're in my bedroom today. I feel like my bedroom's really coming together. I've made it a very nice, cozy space. So yeah, if you're watching the podcast, you'll see I've got my new big patchwork cushion from Oliver Bonus. I've got all my jelly cats surrounding me. Wait, I'm actually probably kind of covering them. We've got a bunny, a piggy. We've got Mr. Toast, Mr. Pretzel, and Mr. Egg over here. Wait, sorry. Just so the camera can see. There you go. I'm so sorry to my audio listeners. I don't know why I feel so anxious about recording today. I've had the weirdest week. I've been all over the place. I'm gonna get into it. But yeah, last time I spoke to you was before I went to London. So I had such a nice weekend in London. I had 2 podcast recordings on the Thursday, one with a very special guest. I never know where to look when I'm recording a podcast now that I'm doing video versions of it. Like, do I look at the camera? I don't really want to look at the camera. I don't want to be aware of myself over there. I want to just talk like I normally talk, like I'm on the phone to you guys, okay? So I'm just going to ignore the camera because I got a comment about that of being like, I feel like I'm invading your like personal space because you're not looking at the camera. Like I feel like I'm being a creep watching you on the phone, but that's kind of what I want, so we're gonna roll with it. Yeah, so I had 2 podcast recordings on the Thursday. First one in the Spotify studios with Eva Adamson from I Kissed a Girl. I cannot wait for that episode to come out, you guys. Like, it was I think one of my favorite episodes to date, definitely my favorite guest episode. We just have like, our chemistry was just good, you know? It worked and we had such a laugh. I think we honestly talked for 2 hours straight. So that's probably going to be a very long episode. Then my second one, I was actually on someone else's podcast. I was on Keelan Moncrief's Growing Up podcast. Not 100% sure when that episode's going to be coming out. Guys, that's the second time I've gone on someone else's podcast. I love Keelan's podcast. I love Keelan. I think she's a great influencer. I think I discovered her over like lockdown. And I've been just like so invested in her life ever since. So to go on her podcast was really cool. However, the way I feel about going on other podcasts is like, okay, you know when you go out and you get maybe a little bit too drunk, you end up having some conversations with people, you do a bit of oversharing, maybe even make some things up for like dramatic effect and entertainment. And then the next morning you're lying in bed with the ultimate fear, the ultimate anxiety. And you're like, why did I say that? Or what did I say? I can't remember. You're like remembering bits of it and you're like, oh my God, I'm a fucking idiot. That's how I feel after I've gone on someone else's podcast. All I've done is think about what I said and I don't even, like, it's like I had a blackout from start to finish and I don't remember anything that I said. Yeah, and then it's like so scary that you don't have control of the edit of it and I just have to wait till that comes out. Like, it genuinely feels like the fear times 100 without any alcohol involved. But anyway, it was still fun. My boyfriend took the Friday off and we just had like a nice day in Central, kind of moseying in shops, going out for food, that kind of thing. And then Saturday we actually went and stayed with his brother in North. Went out for some Italian food in Hackney. Went to a place called Tom's Pasta. Okay, so I'll tell you where my week took a turn. So being in London, I was obviously cat sitting for my sister and she has the 2 most gorgeous cats in the entire world. Well, actually one of them's not that affectionate, but you know, they're just so loving. One of them's very affectionate. It's like all over you, always wants strokes and pets. And like, it just really made me miss, like I already knew how much I missed having my cat, Tigger. I already knew how much I was like stressed over that situation, but like, you know, as on previous episodes, as you heard me talk about it, I was kind of coming to a point of acceptance where I was like, okay, maybe she's just got a new home now, like maybe I'm gonna have to move on. I don't know how much there is I can do about this. And being in Kat's company made me be like, oh my God, no, I miss her so much. Like I'm gonna do everything within my power to get her back, but also at the same time was like, is that going to be possible? Like, should I adopt a cat? Should I maybe start going to sanctuaries and stuff? So anyway, I get home and I decide the Monday's a bank holiday and I'm like, I'm going to go to a sanctuary on Monday and just like see if that's something I'm ready for. But also in the back of my head, I'm like, no, but I'm also going to do other things to try and get Tigger home. You know, this wasn't me deciding I was going to get another cat. This was me very much being like, I'm going to go to the sanctuary because it's playing in my mind, but also I'm going to come home and do loads of other things to try and get Tigger, but also I kind of maybe admitted defeat, you know? So anyway, I go to the sanctuary, I sob the entire way. I see some cats. I'm like really a bit standoffish towards them because I'm like, no, you're not my cat. That's not what I want. I want Tigger. And I cried the entire way home because all I could think about was the fact that they weren't Tigger and I wanted Tigger, and I was trying to fill a Tigger-shaped hole in my heart, and that was never gonna work by getting another cat. Okay, so I come home, I'm like so upset by the whole thing. I'm just want my cat back. I'm trying to think what more I can do. At this stage, what I'd done is I'd posted on several Facebook pages multiple times. I had spoken with neighbours and people in the area, showed pictures of her and things like that. I had gone out for walks calling her name. You know, I'd done all of these things and I was like, what is my last option here? And I was like, oh, I'm going to print out flyers and put them through every single fucking door in this area. And maybe I'll get her back that way. Because maybe, you know, I just happen to not be bumping into the right person, or they're always at work when I go around knocking on doors, or whatever it is, you know, maybe this could be my way to find her. So I print 200 of these flyers saying, have you seen this cat? Details about her, the fact that she doesn't wear a collar, what name she responds to, my number, pictures of her on the flyer, right? And I go and hand them all 200 flyers out. It took me about 2 hours. And while I was doing that, I got a few tip-offs. So, you know, on the occasion where someone was doing some stuff in their front garden, was in their driveway or whatever, I'd obviously stop and talk to them and give them the flyer that way as opposed to posting it through their door. So there was 2 occasions of that where I bumped into 2 men, and the first time the guy was like, I swear I keep seeing that cat. Like for the last 3 weeks, I keep seeing that cat outside this house, and pointed to the house. And I was like, oh my God, really? Do you think it's her? And he was like, is she pregnant? And I was like, no, she's not pregnant, but I can see why you would think she looks pregnant, because she had babies before we got her spayed when she was really, really young, like before she was even a year old. And as a result of that, she's kind of never lost that little flappy tummy. So, you know, I can see why you would look at her and think she was pregnant. So that instantly, when he first said it, I was like, don't get your hopes up. This could literally be any tabby cat. You know, so many tabby cats look near enough the exact same. So don't get your hopes up. That could be any tabby cat. We'll see if he calls you when it does come. But when he said that about does she look pregnant, I was like, that's Tigger. So I was quite excited by that lead. The person wasn't in the house. I did knock on the door. The person wasn't in. He was like, she tends to be there in the afternoon, maybe come back this afternoon, or even wait till like this evening when the person that lives in that house will be back from work and you can knock on the door. So I go off and do more flyering. I end up getting another tip from someone who said a person in another house always feeds cats in their garden. So I did knock on their door. Now, I'm not gonna lie, they were a bit weird. As in, very secretive. He opened the door, peeked his head out, and then just like quickly scuffled through and shut the door behind him. And I was like, are you hiding my cat in there? Like, is that what we were doing here? But I think my anxiety and my suspicions were just like off the Richter scale at this point. So your man was probably just, I don't know, just maybe he had cats of his own and was trying not to let them out, or a dog or something. Do you know what I mean? I think I was just jumping to these conclusions. So anyway, I had these 2 tip-offs. I was excited about it. I was waiting to get hopefully some calls back from the flyering that I did. I went off to the gym and drove home. And when I was driving home, I was like, I'll just slow down. I'll slow right down at these 2 houses. Like every time I pass these 2 houses that I've got tip-offs from, I may as well just like, you know, have a little jukey myself and see if I can see her. So I slow right down outside both of these houses. And when I get to the one, she's there. She's outside the fucking house. I stopped the car in the middle of the road, like bang in the middle of the road, jumped out of the car, ran over to her and was like, Tigger, my darling. I was so excited to see her, and she was so excited to see me. And right, the weirdest thing about this whole thing, right, so I literally took her in my arms, and I was only a few houses away from my house, so I took her back to my house, and she was just like so settled and so at home and so happy straight away. She was so happy to see me. She was so happy to like be back in the house. It wasn't like she was trying to get out or anything. I think my cat's gone a little bit senile. I think I forget how old she is. She's 12 years old. Do you know what it seemed to me? It seemed to me like she didn't know that I was there, that I was only a few houses away and she could come back to me, because her reaction to coming home was like really positive. So I don't know, it's just made me think like maybe she was just a little bit unaware of where she was in relation to the house, and maybe she is going a bit senile. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, I was obviously so delighted to have her back, and finding it outside that house made me realise, okay, that house is obviously feeding her. Like, I haven't had a chance to talk to the person that lives in that house, but like, obviously that's the case, you know, if this guy keeps seeing it by this house and I've now found her outside that house, that's gonna be the case. So I bring her home. I have literally the loveliest time with her. Like, I did not leave her side, she did not leave mine, purring on my lap the entire time. She's made a little home for herself in one of the rooms where the sun comes in, and she just lies there all afternoon when the sun comes in, and oh, she's just my little darling angel. I'm so happy, right? So I'm awaiting for this person to come home to go and knock on their door. So I thought, come like 6, 7 p.m. when they go home from work, I'll nip over and just be like, hey, like, I found my cat outside your house and someone else told me that they keep seeing it here, like, where are you feeding her? Have you been letting her in? That kind of thing. And in my head, right, how I saw that conversation going down, now, I wasn't going to be a massive prick about it, you know, I wasn't going to be roaring in their face, but I wasn't going to be happy about the situation, you know. If you've started feeding my cat and you've essentially, like, taken them in, and as a result for the last 3 months I've been absolutely beside myself, I'm obviously not delighted about the situation. Now, I'm not going to go absolutely in on you, but I am going to make it pretty clear, like, I've been distraught about this for the last 3 months, and sorry, I'm literally I think this is why I'm anxious to talk. Oh, sorry, I need a minute. I think this is why I've been anxious to talk about this, because of this situation, and just because I've been up to high dough, and it's like, not it's settled, but it's like, oh, I don't even know how to describe it. Okay, sorry. So at about 6:30, I get a call from an unknown number, and this was prior to me getting the chance to go over to the house. So straight away I'm like, this is going to be a call about Tigger, like, I hope it's that house. And sure enough, it was. And the person couldn't have been more lovely on the phone. Like, she sounded so happy and so delighted to have found that Tigger did have a home, because she's thought this whole time that it was a stray. So she's so lovely, and she sounds like so sincere and so elated to know. She's like, I'm so happy I got this flyer. Like, I was so close to bringing her to a shelter. First of all, what business have you bringing my cat to a shelter? Like, if there's a cat that you think is a stray, you're supposed to bring it to the vets and find out that they're microchipped and find their owner. Like, I think that's a pretty known thing. Also, you can tell when a cat is stray and when a cat's not stray. You know, a stray cat will be malnourished, it will look feral, their coat won't be well kept, it might be matted. Like, I'm sorry, you can't tell a stray cat from a non-stray cat, okay? So I know her not wearing a collar would maybe make you think twice about it, but there are a lot of cats that refuse to wear collars. That's a pretty common thing. But anyway, that aside, she genuinely did think this cat was a stray and was genuinely worried about it, and was doing what she thought was the right thing by feeding the cat, okay? And she goes on to tell me that she even made her a little shelter outside her back garden, like a little wooden shelter to protect her from the rain, because this girl has 2 cats of her own that are house cats. So she never wanted to let Tigger into the house because of her 2 house cats. And so she would always just feed her outside, and then ended up building this little shelter outside. And she was like, no, I'm so delighted to know she has a home. Like, she said she was worried about what she was going to do with her because she's moving out of the house in 2 weeks' time, and didn't know what was going to happen with her then, and that's why she was going to take her to a shelter. So obviously when you think something's going to go a certain way, but then it ends up going a completely different way because this person's really lovely and seems really genuine about it, so I'm like, I end up being like, oh no, all good, like, found her now, that's what we both wanted, I appreciate that you kept her safe, and like that's really sweet that you built her a little shelter and stuff. Honestly, yeah, just glad she's home. Please, can you stop feeding her now though, because I really need her to just come back here and not associate like yours with getting fed there. And she's like, no, of course, we'll stop feeding her. So that's like obviously step one, because this is the thing, this has been a 3-month thing now, so it's not just quite so easy as finding her and then that being it. Like if that person was to keep feeding them, then they're gonna keep going back there and it'll continue to be a recurring problem. Luckily though, I'm in a situation where it's someone that is very happy to stop feeding her. I've had a lot of messages from people who have been like, it's so annoying, my neighbours do the same with my cat, but they actually won't stop even when I ask them. So thank God she's someone that is like, no, I'll stop feeding her now, so that the issue will hopefully resolve itself. So anyway, obviously I think the conversation's gonna go one way originally, where I'm gonna not go mental, but you know what I mean, like be like, this is so unfair that you've been feeding my cat. But she ends up being like so lovely and so sincere and so happy that she's found Tigger's home, that I have no other option basically but to thank her for keeping her safe, and genuinely thank her as well. You know, that's not me saying, oh, I had no other option but to thank her and I didn't mean it. No, I did mean like, I'm so happy to know that Tigger was safe. But at the same time, I'm obviously fucking raging that someone's been feeding my cat for the last 3 months. And let's face it, if she hadn't been feeding her and she hadn't built her a little shelter, as kind as that was for her to do, she probably would have come home if she didn't have that to go to. So like, this is the thing. These two things can be true at once, okay? Her version of the story is that, and this isn't me saying her version of the story is fake, this is a true version of the story that I fully believe, and her side of the story, that she's been acting out of the goodness of her own heart, feeding a cat that she thought was stray, building it a shelter for when it was raining. Like, she's been doing a lovely thing and thought that was the best thing, okay? And that is true. But you know, the other side of that, and the other true side of that, that is my version, is that someone else has been feeding my cat for the last 3 months, and as a result, she hasn't come back to my house. And you know, that's what happens so often when neighbours start feeding cats coming into their garden, because there's a cat that comes into my garden every single day without fail. I know she will be in my back garden every day. She's a gorgeous cat. She's black and white, British short hair. I know she has an owner, so I don't feed her. Do you know what I mean? Like, cats have a mind of their own, especially outdoor cats. They wander the streets. They do have nosies in people's houses, especially if there's cats in there. If they see other cats in there, they'll eye them up. Like, for example, that cat that comes into my back garden, she loves like peering at Tigger when she's in my house, and they have like little standoffs, like staring at each other. Cats are intrigued by going and seeing other people's gardens and seeing other people's cats. Like, they're explorers, you know? And if every neighbour was to start feeding every cat that came into their garden, we'd all have no fucking cats left. Like, do you know what I mean? Everyone's cats would run away because they'd just be getting fed here, there, and everywhere. And so what you're supposed to do, if you genuinely think a cat is stray, is bring it to the vets and find out if they do have an owner or if they don't. And if they don't, then you can look to rehome it. And if they do, then you can give it back to the owner. And so, yeah, as I was saying, like, my version of the story, my truth is that I'm fuming and I've been beside myself and stressed out and crying myself to sleep over the fact that my cat's gone and I don't know whether she's safe, and I don't know whether she's alive, and I don't know if she hates me or do you know what I mean? Like, I've been thinking non-stop about that. So yeah, obviously there's gonna be like not a conflict there, but like, you know, she's got her truth, I've got mine. Both can coexist at the same time and not mean that what the other person's saying is bullshit. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, that afternoon I put a post up on my Instagram story. I'll read it out for you. Oh wait, sorry, my first one was a little picture of her on my lap purring away, just being so cute. And I was like, back purring on my lap where she belongs. Oh my god, if any more neighbours want to start feeding my cat, I will go fully insane. That's like a bit of a joke, but also like, I'm, you know, I don't know, I feel like I don't need to explain that one. If anyone else was having their cat fed by someone else, I'm pretty sure they'd say a similar thing, like as a bit of a joke. Anyway, I then put another one up of her. Later on that night, she slept on my bed, as she always does when she's in my house. It's the cutest thing ever. She just lies like a little sausage at the end of the bed. Anyway, I said, if you listen to the podcast, you'll know how stressed I've been about the cat sitch for a long time now. Sometimes I play it down just for my own sanity, and so I don't literally burst into tears on every episode, because who wants to listen to that? As I did today. But wow, I've been up to high dough, and tonight I could cry happy tears to have her back. When you live on your own, your cat's company and presence is so huge. I don't think I knew how emotionally attached I was to her before all of this. Turns out a neighbour had been feeding her all along, as I suspected, and after resorting to handing out hundreds of flyers in my area today, I found the culprit. Lol. I know people never have bad intentions feeding others' cats that come into their garden, and you might actually even think that you're doing a good thing, but I cannot stress enough how unfair it is. So many cats come into my back garden and they're all so cute, but they're not mine. I wouldn't dream of feeding them or letting them into my house. You wouldn't do it with a dog, so why do people think it's okay with a cat? If you genuinely think a cat is stray, I never believe people who say that though, you can quite clearly tell a feral cat from a non-feral cat, then bring them to a vet and see if they're chipped so you can contact the owner. Unfortunately, this person has been feeding her for so long that this is only just the first hurdle, as she'll be so used to going back to that house for food now, although the person has said they'll stop feeding her, thankfully. I did buy a do not feed me collar, which I plan on putting on her when I next let her out, but she has never once kept a collar on her, so I don't have much faith in that working. If anyone has been in this situation before and you have any tips on how to make sure your cat keeps coming back to you and no one else, please let me know. For now, I'm going to buy her lots of fish and treats and hope that she never leaves my side again. Someone obviously saw that story that is friends with my neighbour and sent it to them and was like, is this the cat that you've been feeding? And my neighbour puts two and two together and realises that that is the case. And I get this because obviously my number was attached to the flyers and she had called me before, you know, so she had my number. And I get this big long text basically saying about how offended she was by that story. I'm not going to read out the message. I don't think that's necessary. But she was so offended by it because I think, you know, her version of events is so different from my version of events. As I said, her version of events is her doing what she thought was the right thing and acting out of the goodness of her own heart. My version of events is me being stressed out, crying every day, you know, not shutting the fuck up about it, crying myself to sleep, being so anxious all the time, constantly thinking about where she is, knocking on people's doors, showing pictures of them. Do you know, like, our version of events of the last 3 months has been very different. And although now we have both, like, not come together, but, you know, like, found out then the other's version of events, it's like, oh wow, like, it's so crazy how, like, different those two things are, but also both of them are true. So I think maybe her seeing that story as opposed to, like, my reaction that I had on the phone maybe was a bit triggering, because I guess, yeah, it would be triggering to see someone be, like, angry about the fact that you've just been doing something that you thought was so nice and so good. And yeah, as I said, like, you were going out of your way to be kind, and yet you've got someone else being very angry on the other side of that. So I do get her frustrations, but I also think, like, you really have to consider that there can be those two truths. They can both coexist, and also, yeah, just, like, it not be fake, it not be me lying. And I don't think that she's lying. I think she was massively offended at the use of the word culprit. But I mean, what other word would you use for that? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you can think of another... What was the term I used? Turns out a neighbour had been feeding her all along, as I suspected, and after resorting to handing out hundreds of flyers in my area today, I found the culprit. Can any of you think of a better use of language instead of culprit? Because in my eyes, culprit is perfect. I'm not calling her a fucking criminal. Do you know what I mean? But, like, if the shoe fits, you are the culprit that was feeding my cat. Whether you were doing it maliciously or non-maliciously is kind of irrelevant. Like, you are the culprit. So... yeah. Yeah, I get this big long message, basically her explaining her side of it and being, like, taken aback by the story, and I just responded telling my side of things and was like, I know you weren't feeding her maliciously. I don't actually think anyone feeding any stray, what they think is stray cat, is ever malicious. I think it's always that they think they're doing the right thing, but what you have to understand is that there's always going to be a distraught cat owner on the other side of that. And that's what I was trying to shed light on by putting up that story, in case there was, and I'm sure there is, people that follow me that do feed cats that come into their garden. And I guess I just wanted to make that known that, like, you know, every time you feed a cat that's not yours, you're teaching them to come back to your house and you're distancing them from their owner and knowing that they can go back to their own house for being fed. So I just wanted to shed light on that by that story, and I wanted people to be aware that, like, I don't get why people wouldn't do it with dogs and they would see that as like a bad thing, but then with cats it's like so frequently done. They're actually making it illegal. I've been saying on social media recently, apparently they're making that illegal. But yeah, I guess I just told her my version of events and was like, I believe you, you know, I know you aren't acting maliciously and I don't think you're evil, but you have to understand that on the other side of that has been me having the most tumultuous 3 months, stressing about the fact that my cat wasn't coming home. So yeah, that's what's been going on in my life the last week. But I'm so happy now to have her home. It feels like so surreal. It's so weird because although on one hand I had got to the point of kind of acceptance of thinking she's never going to come back, but I also still had a little bit of faith in me, you know. I kept telling myself, you know, cats don't go that far. It's just a case of me finding who the culprit is. Like, and for lack of a better word, because it is literally the culprit, but do you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean culprit, and maybe culprit has negative connotations. I don't mean it in a negative way, but just to find who was feeding my cat, you know. I was missing the person when I was knocking doors, and I wasn't reaching them when I was posting on social media and on Facebook pages and things like that. So it was just a case of finding the culprit in a different way, and I think I just like had faith in that and had faith in her coming back to me. I do think my cat's gone a little bit senile. My mum used to always think that she was a little bit blind as well. It's kind of hard to tell with cats, any animals, because their sense of smell is so good. So if they are blind or a bit blind, because their sense of smell is so good, they can usually make up for it with their smell. But I'm really like considering my options because she's been an outdoor indoor cat her whole life. So I'm like, it feels wrong to make her a fully indoor cat now, but at the same time, I think it might be necessary to make her a fully indoor cat. Yeah, I'm gonna see, because like the other day, I sat outside with her for a bit and just like the sun was out and she likes lying on the tarmac, and I was kind of just like stroking her and trying to get her used to just kind of staying in my garden, and she ended up running back across the road, and I did just go and grab her an hour later. So I think maybe if I just have to keep doing that and keep like training her to come back, then that's okay. But I don't know, if she does keep continuing to show signs of being a little bit senile, I might have to just keep her as an indoor cat. I don't know, we'll see. If anyone has any tips, as I said on that Instagram story, if you have any tips of like, if you've ever had this happen to you, any tips about how to make sure they know to come back to your house. I've been feeding her, like, she's probably going to put on so much weight. I've been feeding her, like, the best food ever. I've been giving her loads of treats, tuna, salmon, like, you name it, that cat's getting it. She gets treated like an absolute queen in this house. So I'm hoping a combination of that and then her not getting fed at that place will help. But I'm really open to any suggestions other people have. I actually got a really lovely lengthy message from someone who's been through this, and they said that they put an AirTag on their cat. Now obviously that does rely on your cat wearing a collar, so I don't know if that's going to be an option for me. I'm yet to try the collar on her. I think when she next goes out, I'm going to put it on her, or no, sorry, I'm going to put it on her in the house and see if she keeps it on in the house, because there's no point in me putting it on her right before letting her out and then her just taking it off while she's out, because then I've lost the colour as well. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to put it on her in the house and I'm going to see if she keeps it on in the house, and then she might keep it on, you know, when she goes out. So if she does end up keeping that on, I'm definitely going to get an AirTag, but I don't want to jump to getting an AirTag and spending the money on it for her to just like rip off a collar anyway, and the AirTag be a waste of money. Although, is an AirTag ever really a waste of money? I could use it for suitcases. Maybe I'll just get an AirTag actually, and we can try that out. I don't imagine her keeping that on. No. That woman has never kept a collar on in her life. She'll probably just bite me as I try and do it. Tabby cats and tortoise cats, they have real feisty sides to them, and if you cross them, or if you come up to them when they're not wanting affection, they have to come up to you, you know? They're very much like, no, I want my personal space, and I want to come up to you when I want to be looked after and pet. So they have boundaries, and if you cross those boundaries, you're getting karate chopped by the claws. She's as obsessed with my boyfriend as ever. It pains me, although I kind of love it. It's so weird. She loves men, even though, so my dad doesn't like cats, and when she lived in our family house, like, my dad never gave her any form of affection ever. Like, he's very much just not a cat man. Okay, he wasn't mean to her, but like, he just would never entertain her or like give her any affection. And my brother didn't like cats either, so she's never had, I think maybe it's to do with this, she's never had men that have like loved her in my family's home. Whereas I think because my boyfriend loves her, she maybe just loves the male validation. She's one of us. She loves a little bit of male validation, as she should. We're all a sucker for it. But yeah, she's obsessed with him. Anytime he's round, she's all over him like a rash. When he's lying in bed, she literally sleeps on his chest, like purring into his neck. It's the cutest thing ever, but I'm also like, bitch, I'm your mother. But it just like makes me happy to see her being like that with him. It's so weird because in my head, this podcast was going to be me talking about how much of a, I guess, bad mental health week I've had, but then I've now got to the other side of that where I'm delighted that she's home and feeling so much better. And I think that is maybe what was like weighing on me so much throughout the week. It was just kind of one of those weeks where, I know it sounds so dramatic, like honestly, get on with your life, you know? But if you have animals, you'll know the feeling. But yeah, I think that was just like playing on me so much, and then other things were getting to me because I was down from that, if that makes sense. So like, for example, on my skin, I haven't talked about my perioral dermatitis in a while, by the way. I have been trying to clear my perioral dermatitis, as you guys know, without taking the antibiotics, because this is the third time I've got it. I don't want to have to always resort to taking antibiotics, because this could be, like I've seen from multiple people, if you get it once, you're very prone to getting it again, especially if you're a woman like in your 20s or 30s. You're very likely to get it again, to have it as like a once a year, maybe even twice a year kind of thing. This is my third time getting it within the last year and a half, or maybe the last 2 years. So I'm not doing that to my body. I'm not taking a 6-week course of antibiotics every time it comes. I need to find a way that heals it without that if it's gonna keep happening. So I've been on a little bit of a journey with finding what works for me skincare wise with getting rid of it. But ultimately what I've discovered is that nothing is actually getting rid of it. Now, the products that I have and that I'm using on it are really good with it in that they don't flare it up. They keep it at bay a little bit. They keep it from getting worse. They don't irritate it. However, it's not getting rid of it. I have days where it almost looks like it's gone, but it's not. And I think what I've realized is that I need something to actually clear it, and then also have these products that keep it at bay. So I was getting really down about my skin last week, and I have a doctor's appointment upcoming this week where I'm going to ask for an antibiotic cream, because I think that's a better option of getting rid of it than taking oral antibiotics and it affecting, you know, my whole gut and everything. Hopefully that works for me. I'll keep you guys updated with that, but I'm just so over it at this point. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to have fun with makeup again. I want to do my little chatty get ready with me. I've got loads of new products I want to try out and I'm really excited about, and I just can't use them while I'm worried about anything affecting my skin. So I'm just over it, guys, and I was just like at wit's end this week about it, and I just feel like I spend my life with Sudocrem on my fucking face. Do you know what I mean? When you just feel so ugly all the time, you don't feel yourself, and I just have like Sudocrem all over my chin and around my nose all the time because I'm just constantly trying to get rid of it. And like, yeah, I'm over it. So fingers crossed we find a cure. It was just one of those weeks where you're just on edge, and anything, like any tiny little thing, can just very easily tip you over that edge. I'll give you an example of a time that happened this week. I think it was like Tuesday night, and I had spent the whole of Monday putting on washes. You know, when you just have like a big backlog of washing to do and you need to put on like 3 or 4 washes in one day, right? So I literally felt like I spent my whole day doing that. Now, obviously I didn't spend my entire day doing that, but you know when you just think in your brain that that's what you spent your time doing, okay? So I do all my washing, I hang it all up. It's really sunny outside. It's a really gorgeous day and I'm like, oh, I'll leave the washing outside. By the way, I never leave my washing outside because I don't trust the weather in Ireland, because we rarely get 24 hours of sun without rain, especially this summer. Like, that has just not been a thing. We have not seen maybe 24 hours, but we have not seen 48 hours without rain, no matter how nice it's been. So I rarely leave my washing outside unless it's like, I can see on the forecast it's going to be really nice and I know I'm going to be home to take it in. But on this one occasion, I was like, I've got so much shit to dry here and it's not going to dry inside unless I put the heating on, and it's fucking boiling outside. I'm not putting the heating on. Like, I refuse to put the heating on, okay? So I put the washing out and there's no space on the line for my sheets. So I'm like, I'll go around to my parents' house and put my sheets in their dryer. And also my parents were away on holiday, so I was like, oh, I'll go get some wee bits for them from the shop, you know, so they've got stuff in the morning like bread, milk, that kind of thing, and I'll go and do a bit of work around at their house, stick my sheets in the dryer, and then come back to mine, make my nice fresh bed up, fresh sheets, nothing better, and I will have a lovely night to myself. I'm sitting at my parents' house and it starts chucking it down. Like, absolutely bucketing, as in, like, not even just lightly spitting where I can, because my house is only a few minutes, like, it's only 5 minutes drive away from my parents' house. So not even just lightly where I could just, like, nip back home and be home in 5 minutes and take it in and everything be fine. No. I'm talking chucking it down where every single piece of clothing would be soaked through by this point. And the second I realised, burst out crying as if it was like the end of the entire fucking world. And I was like almost laughing, crying, because I was laughing at myself for being so stupid for crying about this, but also bawling my eyes out because everything just felt so overwhelming in that moment. And anyway, I was like, there's no point in me going home, they're soaked now, do you know what I mean? So I waited till my sheets were dry, I went home, took them in, obviously they're literally dripping wet. I text my boyfriend and I'm like, do I have to put this all through the wash again? Knowing in my head, yes, you obviously have to put it through the wash again. It stinks of dirty rainwater. And he replies, yeah, probably. And again I go, just bawling my eyes out. Like, I was a mentally unstable bitch. And that's okay. That's okay to have weeks like that. And sometimes you need to laugh about it. And the next day I was like, whoa, that was a lot. So yeah, that's just where I've been at this week. That's what's been going on in my brain. Nothing how mentally unstable I've been, where your washing getting rained on has had the ability to literally send me into an absolute spiral and start bawling my eyes out. I had to like stress to my boyfriend. I sent him a picture of me like proper Kim K crying, and he was like, oh darling, it's just washing. And I was like, oh my no, I'm so embarrassed now. Like, I'm so embarrassed because I promise you I'm not crying about my washing. That was just the icing on the cake for me. But you know what? I'm so happy to be able to sit here and say that that week is over and has ended on the most positive note with finding my cat. I went out on a lovely big walk on Saturday morning there. We walked up the Mourne Mountains. We did Slieve Donard, which is such a stunning walk, especially if the sun is out. It's so beautiful. If you haven't done it, I feel like everyone in Northern Ireland has done it. It's like probably the most common mountain trail you can do, but it's so beautiful. If you haven't done it, I really urge you to do it, especially on a sunny day. Get up early, get up and down it before lunchtime, treat yourself to a lovely lunch either in Newcastle town or like we went to a place in Ballynahinch, which is so lovely. It's a place called Harry's Place and it's all vegan. Their food is insane. Like, if you're not vegan, you'll still love it. It's actually amazing. They employ people with learning disabilities, and it's basically to allow adults with learning disabilities to get work experience, to live more of a normal life, to feel like they have more of a purpose. Because I think as kids with learning difficulties, there's so much more support for you. And I think then once you kind of leave school and you're now an adult, there's not as much support out there for you and like as much help with like, you know, integrating you into society and the support with your family and having work opportunities and the chance to like have these like different social nights, like they put on these different nights and everything for them. But yeah, it's like the loveliest cafe ever. I just think it's like the best initiative. Everyone who works there is so kind and like so amazing, and I really urge you all to try there if you haven't been. They actually also opened on the Ormer Road, Harry's Place at 387 it's called, but the one in Ballinhinch is a lot bigger and there's a lot more going on. They also have more selection of foods, and I guess it's like their main hub, whereas the one in Ormo is just like very much like a small cafe shop. But like both are equally as good. I just think it's nice to go to that one in Ballinhinch, especially if you're walking up the moors and want to get lunch after. Can I just say though, every time you do Sleeve Donard, you forget how hard it is. So the majority of the walk, I would say 75% of the walk is really lovely, really easy. If the sun is out, stunning views, like blue skies everywhere, cows on the way up, sheep on the way up. Honestly, take your breath away kind of beautiful. You know, like the type of beautiful that people, like tourists, post about Ireland being so beautiful and you're like, wait, what? That's on my doorstep and I forget about it, you know, like that kind of thing. So amazing for 75% of it, right? Then you get to this kind of like, it's almost like a saddle shaped bit, right? And you can go up right to the peak of another mountain, or you can go up left to the peak of Donard. And that last little bit, that last 25% is so fucking steep and so hard. And also so cold. No matter how hot it is on that walk, right? We're walking around shorts and t-shirt, sunglasses on. No matter how warm it is, that last little 25% of the walk is freezing, grey and cloudy and really fucking difficult, and you literally have to stop every 15 seconds and be like, okay, I can do this, and like keep going. It's a tough walk, that last little bit. I really am feeling it in my legs today, my legs and my bum. Walking uphill is good for the bum. And then you get up to the top and you can't see a fucking thing because it's so high up that it's just always cloudy up there no matter what. Like there was literally no view at all from the top. And that's always the way, even though it was a blue sky, clear day. I just think it's just one of those things where it's just too high up. Like it's just a completely different climate to the rest of the walk. Amazing walk nonetheless. Went to a family friend's barbecue last night. Was also doing the makeup for a wedding party on Friday morning. That was fun. So, you know, it may have been a bad few days, but it was rounded up with a lovely, unexpected, happy ending. And so I'm delighted to be finishing that story on a positive note. This actually was supposed to be a girly chats episode where I was going to answer all your dilemmas. I have managed to turn this into a full episode, the story. No shock there. I seem to be able to yap about anything and everything for a full episode. Sorry. You'll get the girly chats episode next week instead, okay? I promise. We'll finish off with a little pit and peak of the week, but I mean, I feel like that's pretty obvious from what I've just talked about. Pit of the week, few bad days. Peak of the week, finding Tigger. Recommendation of this week is gonna be the Dazed magazine newsletter. I'm not a huge fan of many newsletters. In fact, regularly I will go and make sure I unsubscribe to anyone that I'm accidentally subscribed to, whether it be because I've like purchased from them or signed up when I thought it was a good idea. You know what I mean? Like I regularly go on like decluttering of my emails and my subscriptions, and the Dazed magazine newsletter is like no other. It's my new form of social media. I honestly am so obsessed with it. If I'm urging everyone to sign up to the Dazed newsletter right now, it is so good. I love their articles. I love their take on things. I love how like Gen Z it is and how unserious it is, but also how informative it is at the same time. And I just like really look forward to their emails, which I can't say I do with any other emails. You know, emails are something I tend to dread unless it's like order confirmation for something, then, or like out for delivery from Every. That's a good email to get. But other than that, I only like my Dazed emails. I feel like they've been like inspiring me for topics for podcasts and stuff as well, you know. I'll see a headline and think, oh, I need to look into this. I'll read the topic and then I'll read around that. And like, yeah, I just feel like I've been feeling inspired thanks to Dazed. And so I actually bought one of their magazines as well when I was in London. There's no good magazine shops in Belfast. Not a single one, not a single newsagent sells any good magazines. They sell all that, like, those, like, trash magazines, like Pop UK and all that kind of shit. But, like, you can't go and get a good fashion or lifestyle magazine in any shops in Belfast. There's a huge gap in the market. If anyone listening to this is from Belfast and is looking for a new business opportunity, there it is, handed to you on a platter. You know where it would work so well? St. George's Market. How good would that be? A little magazine stand in St. George's Market? Are you kidding me? You can thank me later, whoever takes that business idea. I'm not going to take it because I don't have the time. If no one's done it by the time I've taken a step back from social media, that could be my next calling in life. Who knows? Anyway, I will leave it here for this week's episode. I'm so sorry we didn't do any dilemmas. I promise you they are coming. I'm actually really excited to answer some of them. But yeah, as always, thank you all so much for your continued support and love on the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. I love you guys so much, and I will speak to you in next week's episode.